Well, it's with great joy that I welcome you back into Those Amigos. I'm Wilmer Valderrama.
Freddy Rodriguez.
And we're very special individuals. We don't do this podcast thing, but we're now experts. And, the show has started as, these ongoing conversations and getting to know each other. And in these conversations, we discovered there were individuals along the way that really kind of marked us, helped us, and changed us, and also inspired us in many ways. So it's with great joy that I introduce the first ever guest.
Yes.
On Dos Amigos. Might be the last one. We'll see. We'll see how this one goes. But we're gonna try this thing.
Yeah.
Freddy, I want you to meet Topher Grace.
Topher Grace in the house.
Topher Grace,
the legendary.
One of the greats. One of the greats.
Legendary, indeed.
Wait, Wilmer, one thing I was going to do, which I won't do now, was because I thought it was one of those podcasts where you just walk in and start talking, but it's clearly not.
We used to be that way, but now they ask us to ID the show.
I was going to do a whole you're from 70s show.
Yes.
You were great. What did you play?
I was Fez on the 70s show.
Okay, were you
We were in every scene, man.
Were you recurring or what were you?
No, I was really a regular, dude. Anyways, but so you guys haven't met, or you've maybe crossed paths.
I think we must have crossed paths at some point.
Yeah, in the early 2000s maybe when we were all out. Yeah.
But I love this show. I love what you guys are doing. It's such a
thank you,
and I feel like such an interloper here, but I'm happy to be your first guest.
No, and we're so happy to have you, man, and so happy that we did some homework.
Oh,
I have paper in my hand. I've never done this before. I never
can't wait to help your listeners to set some experience, what it's like to be a straight white male, and how boring we are. I wanted to make this show a little more boring.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely, never that. But starting into it, right? Mm-hmm. A lot of this show, Topher, to kind of tell you what they started. It was kind of like this deep dives on the things that kind of made us, right?
I know. I've listened to it. That's why I'm like, what am I doing here?
Yeah. No. Well, the point is that you have such an interesting perspective, because I really believe very few people in entertainment has achieved what you have, specifically when they were given a responsibility to be an anchor on a show. And we were talking about it. You were talking about it in the past, and I had said that. That Topher Grace had brought up to life Eric Forman in a way that nobody else could have. And I would say this, the rest of the guys, I sound like, Kurtwood Smith, you couldn't think about anyone playing Red, right?
Right.
And I think the idea that at a time where something so new and so disrupted to TV, somehow we had the audacity to just come up with characters and be like, oh, this is what it's going to be. And then the writers be like, okay, run with that,
Right.
But one of the things that I've always respected, and I've always said, out loud all the time, is that when I look back at what you had done with Eric Forman, it was unexpected, it was unpredictable, and it kept audiences captivated. That a leading character on a sitcom doesn't have to be the straight character, like the character that doesn't really have the colors and you made something.
Oh yeah, you're right. It is a little bit, and I remember on the page at the beginning, it was a little bit just the straight guy. Like he just I'd set up everyone, and I remember setting you up. It was terrible. I technically had more lines, but every time Wilmer spoke, the audience would stand up and applaud. And then I'd say another line, and then Ashton would say something that was a huge hit. But over time, and that's the best thing about doing one of those shows. It's one of the things I hate when young actors, there aren't even that many sitcoms anymore, but when they say, I can't wait to get off of this show I'm doing and get into films, what I want to say is this is the best training ground.
Right.
Because when you stink, and we know we were...
Right. There was misses.
At the beginning, yeah.
There was a lot of hits, but there were misses.
A couple misses in a row at the beginning, and especially from me. I never. I remember this is your second professional job. I think you did a Pac
I did a Pacific Bell Marjorie LePage's commercial before,
and I had done nothing. So that was
that was your first. That was your first gig.
But talk a little bit about that, because you were doing theater, and theater. But you were in college,
high
right?
School. No, I didn't do any theater.
That's right. It was high school.
I'd done high school plays, and not even that many, and it was a bad drama program.
Were you in high school when you got the gig?
I was at a boarding school
Uh-huh.
in New Hampshire.
Which explains a lot, yeah.
Wilmer and I.
We'll get into it.
Okay.
Wilmer and I have almost identical backgrounds.
Hey.
All right, so I was going to a boarding school in New Hampshire, and the girl who did the sets, who Wilmer knows, Lindsay, her parents were these amazing writers who changed all of our lives.
Yeah. Yeah.
They'd written on SNL, and then they wrote the Wayne's World movie. And
Yeah,
they
Bonnie
wrote
and Terry Turner.
Right.
the Brady Bunch movie, which is great, and Tommy Boy, and like they're just crushing it. And then they created Third Rock from the Sun, which is when I was at school with Lindsay. I was like,
Yeah, John Lithgow.
yeah, it's like this is incredible. Her parents just won the Golden Globe for some. I was like, this is crazy.
Yeah.
And then they saw this play that I did senior year, and they kind of said, "We know you're going to USC next year. You know, can we call you?" And I was like, man, I had no idea what they meant. You could not guess that they meant to be in something. And I'd only been in a couple plays, and to let you know how great a drama program the school had, we could only do plays that had no sets. Like, this is the first play she did the set that like she stepped forward and said, like, we'll do like a wall.
Right.
But it was all plays that, like, you know, Godspell and Our Town.
Because of budgetary issues?
There wasn't even a theater. It was like, we go to like the church, you know, and the kids would sit in the pews. I mean, it was like, there was, it was not very good. I mean, there clearly was like not a good theater program, but because of that, it actually it's funny that you weren't there with me, but you kind of were in spirit in the sense that I was doing this with you then, you know, a year and a half later, but we were just kind of coming up with, stuff we thought was interesting. Like the teacher who did it didn't even show up most of the time. So like, we just add stuff. I mean, it's sacrilege. I literally think it's illegal to add so much stuff to a play that the school's playing to license or something. But we changed so much of things that I think maybe the Turners saw, like, oh, he's, you know, it's not like when you go to see a good high school play and everyone, it's like a Broadway musical, but younger people or something. Like, this was like totally weird and
so it wasn't like necessarily like a theater program. It was y'all just kind of put together like a theater club, or
there was going to be a school play and there were auditions and I mean, it was.
But were you thinking like acting? Why not me? Like, were you thinking that at all? Like, were you just doing it recreationally? Like, what was your interest in it? Right?
I thought it was neat. I mean, I did the video yearbook too. I thought anything that was like kind of creative and extracurricular. But then when I went to USC the next year, I did none of that. Like, I didn't. But I had so many friends that were actors because they'd all moved to LA to be in the business or be around it. And I got rejected from the film school. And I thought, what am I even doing out here in LA? And then, but have I ever really told you this whole story?
No.
Bonnie called me. I was in my dorm, and some of the kids were smoking. I mean, apropos of the show, they were smoking in my room. And then the phone rings. I'm like, hello? And she's like, hey, it's Bonnie. I mean, I was like, Bonnie, like, who are, like, did we hook up? Like, what? And she was like, no, I'm
your friend's mom.
I'm Lindsay's mom. I was like, oh shit! Like, can I swear hook up with you? Okay, can you swear on this podcast? You can swear on this, right? Yeah. All right. I was like, put it all away. Like, we're gonna get detention or whatever. She's like, no, I'm calling you because, I mean, it was so mind blowing to me. I mean, I knew what they did and totally thought it was cool, but never thought. I still was like, do you mean for me to be your assistant, or like, what are you talking about? And she's like, no. Basically, we've had every kid in Hollywood in.
Right.
They're all, I mean, I realize now what she meant was like, they're all too cool. We want like a real nerd. like a
someone authentic.
Fresh from the tree. And I was currently not getting laid in college. And I was like, all right. And so I think she said, bring a headshot and a resume. This is how green I was.
You're like, what is a headshot?
I said, what's that? I said, I know what a resume is because I had worked at Suncoast Video and Dunkin' Donuts. But I was like, but what is a headshot?
Yeah.
And she was like, oh God, like it's it's like a picture that goes with your resume. And when I brought it in, do you know the story?
No.
I brought it in, it was a piece of paper like this, and paper clipped to it was a picture of me and my friends at Six Flags. like in the parking lot, like
Dude, I've never heard this
6
story
people in the-
before. I've never heard this
What
story
do you
before.
like Kinko'd? Like
No, it was just a printed out like 4x6 photo.
The
It
one
was
you
not
get
at
from
all like
Costco. That way, the one that you get from Costco when you remember, yeah.
wow, like one that you had like in your photo album somewhere.
Yeah, that wasn't even an album. It was just like a photo I had. I was like, all right, that's me. And I put it with the resume that said like, Suncoast Video, like night shift at Dunkin' Donuts. I mean, these people.
I mean,
were
it's
like,
the perfect pitch for Eric Forman, though.
I mean,
when you really think about it.
Yeah, you're right.
Right?
You're
Like in a
right.
weird
Yeah.
way, it's like the perfect pitch.
I had a lunch with Tom Warner once. Such a nice guy. He was our old
he's
boss.
a sweetheart.
And I think he admitted to me that they were like, we're just going to bring this kid in so you can see what we're looking for. Like, we want someone like this, but we don't actually want that. Like, this guy is not an actor. Like, we can't have him do it. And then it went well enough that but I'll say in Wilmer Valderrama's book, which is very good, which I've read cover
Thank
to
you,
cover,
sir. Thank
but
you.
skipped through a bunch of it until I got to the part that mattered. No, I read all
So
of it.
fucked up.
Which was written from an awesome perspective, by the way. I really loved. It was really interesting to me to read that book, especially about our experience from your point of view. The best part is for me was that I like walked in and I mean, why don't you tell this story?
Which one?
When you first saw it.
Dude, this. So I was like so scared to make a mistake. Period. Right. So you walk into an auditioning room, right, and you're like. You sit in the chair that they somehow pointed at, you know what I mean? Like, you just don't look and, you wait until they call your name. You're like everything by the book, right? You're like being invited into something like was so mysterious. So I didn't want to do anything that was like disrespectful or like foreseen as like egotistic or whatever. I just wanted to be a nice boy here,
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sitting there and this dude walks in like he owns the place, goes straight to the refrigerator. And like opens, grabs a water, and then picks up an apple, and just like sits down and it's like eating. And I'm like,
at the audition.
I mean, I was like, for sure, this fucking guy's not getting the part. Like, he's definitely not getting this part.
Right.
And he goes in there and like grabs the water and like is drinking whatever, and like doesn't say hi to anybody and all that stuff. And he's sitting there, and I was like, this guy's. His energy's crazy. Like I'm thinking, who does that?
Here's what you gotta know. I already had the part.
I didn't know that.
Okay, but
I didn't know you had the part.
I would never. I was scared too. When I first started.
So this was
Of course, but that's my
at his
point.
audition, so you were sitting in the back? Like,
No, I was in the waiting room, and he was waiting to do
I was
chemistry
called in to read
reads.
with people who played Laura's part. Basically.
Right.
I see.
Yeah.
So I was
love
like,
interest,
I had it. I'd been there a couple of times.
Yeah.
But even so, the thing I love about that story so much is how different our backgrounds are,
Right.
and how entitled I probably was. You know what I mean? Like even
Yes and no, but I think the reason why I told the story that way is because from my perspective, I was like, oh man, someone like that, like someone that fresh, is not gonna get this part.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But little did I know that he already got the part. He'd been in this place a bunch of times, right?
Yeah.
He got the part. He obviously, knew the
No, but
system.
Wilmer, you have to this is what I can contribute to this podcast because clearly I have a very different background from you guys, but one of the most wonderful things that happened to me is I grew up in a very myopic, very affluent town in Connecticut. I mean, it's like just the total opposite of how Wilmer grew up, and I probably I don't want to get too corny, but I think it's like a little miracle that I got the show. I mean, what a weird way to even get. I mean, it's a lottery ticket just to get a role. And I've never auditioned for anything, whatever. But then to be forced into a group of people who are so that you never would have met, never would have hung out with. And especially that you and I had this incredible connection from day one. I mean, you and I really became best friends right off the bat.
Yeah.
And then I would come over to his folks' house and hang out a lot with your sisters.
I lived with my family, so when it's like, oh, you want to come over, my mom was there, my dad is there, my mom is cooking the soups, and like we had...
And just understanding the world from another point of view. I'd been to boarding school, so there were people from different countries and stuff, but it was also myopic in the sense of like, everyone was at a boarding school. You know what I mean? So
What was that like for you to go to a Venezuelan / Colombian house and to have dinner with this family whose language
It was incredible. It was, you don't know what you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's what I've learned about like growing up. I'm so glad I got out of that town because I know a lot of people I grew up with, went to college and came right back to that town.
Right.
And so that alone was a victory. But then you knew me then. If I stayed in college, I'm like kind of a shy guy, and I wouldn't have done any of the things. I mean, we did so many amazing things together. Mm-hmm. But when I think back about it, I mean, sometimes I'd sleep over at Wilmer's house because it was because we were like teenagers.
Yeah.
And like I'd go over there and have like I know it was amazing, especially going through this thing where it's like scary and you're getting famous and you don't understand what's happening in your life. Yeah. But then to have such a good friend and to also have a eye-opening experience about. I don't think I was walking around entitled like within my community I would have been seen as a jerk. Mm-hmm. But I do think I was entitled. You know what I mean? That's like part of life is growing up and realizing like where you came from.
You also have to give yourself some credit because here's the thing: you were tossing to be the center nucleus of what was a primetime Fox sitcom between The Simpsons and the X-Files.
I'm glad I was a little entitled. I know what you mean. Like I thought like this will happen for me, right?
Dude, we talk about this in the show a few times where like you have to have some kind of audacity to think that you belong. Right. Because nothing about this industry tells you you do. Right? Like a lot
most of the industry made me feel pretty comfortable. When I was looking at my representation on screen, I thought, yeah. Seems this is what how I grew up.
Yes, I need to take a drink.
But honestly, that's why it's so magical for me that I got to and it I mean it's not like one of those movies where someone has like it's such a natural, real experience. Right. We just connected and comedy and performing is Wilmer didn't know English that well at the time, truly.
Yeah, and I just learned English 4 years before that. That's actually, no, crazy. 2 years before that, because I got into the country 4 years before that.
Yeah, when he says learned English, I would say he learned some of English. But he was, but the universal language you spoke it's like pass-fail on show night. Like, so first I had respect for him because I was like, oh, this guy's hilarious. And then I started to get to know you, and I thought like, it was just very eye-opening. It's probably kind of life-changing for me, more so than it was for you, I bet. Like even though I'm sure a lot of
but it was for me too, because you have to understand also, because I had only been here a couple of years, meeting someone like him, who also, by the way, his family also took me in the same way. Every time I see his dad, you
came home.
You went down to Connecticut. I was like, hey, Dad.
Yeah, he slept in my bunk bed. I still had my childhood bunk bed, and he was.
Yes, I went over to Connecticut, and we took the train over together, and I was like, oh my God, it's like in the movies.
Right.
That's what he said. Right? We went for a walk with my dad through the woods. We have these woods behind our house.
Yeah.
And I guess most of the movies that are shot about the woods, he'd seen in movies. Yes. But he kept saying, like, this is like a set. And my dad was like, what is this kid talking about? Like, these are the woods. Like, this is the league's fakes. But I got...
But we take a walk through his backyard, and he was like, it was like the trees, and it was fall, right? So it was like kind of like gloomy and a little bit spooky, and it just looked like, oh, this is like the American towns that they make movies about.
Like you would see in the movies.
Yes, dude. Yes, so I'm like, oh, this is so cool.
Makes sense.
And, got to be in his neighborhood and his childhood home and got to sleep in the bunk beds. And, but that was our life. That was like, most of it. And we never lost that. We never lost that. We were always like quoting movies and being clowns and like just being kids, which I think it attributed to how playful we were when we were creating our characters. Because you had to play.
And safe, dude, and safe.
We were safe because we weren't like, we weren't taking each other down for it. There was no competition. We all had a very specific contribution, and we all stood to that lane, and we respected each other's lanes, and it was just great because I knew that it was funny if he was, laughing. And like we would run jokes by each other, like, "Oh, you think this is funny? You think this is?" So that's kind of how it worked. But yeah, to go back and to think about.
So you had this experience coming to America that must have been insane. I loved reading about it in your book. But but in a weird way, my experience was kind of similar getting to know you, because I went like, there's so much that's different, and yet we had so much that was the same. And then, it opened my eyes to lots of different people since when I met you.
Once you got in the saddle and you're like, oh, I'm doing this acting thing. Because we never thought like, oh, is it going to get canceled anytime soon or whatever?
Right.
When did you?
it'll
Talk about
forever.
audacity. Yeah, we were like, why isn't this a bigger hit right now? Yeah.
Yeah. We were, but the thing is, like, nobody wanted to see us as a hit for the first 3 years. So we never really thought like, oh, this is going to be forever. But at the same time, we were in this really safe environment that all of a sudden it was like, oh, we're just giving it a shot, and we're like,
Well, it got picked up for 2 years. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I think that happened in the second or third season.
I think in the second season.
Second,
maybe.
they did a 2 year.
So we were kind of like, we're here, and that's a long time when you're that age.
Yeah, they were doing 25 a season.
So we got to sit back and kind of feel, kind of like what that show is supposed to feel like it's just these people hanging out, and then, I mean, I haven't now with kids and stuff. I mean, you never do this anymore. But to be rehearsing a scene where you're hang out with someone, and then go hang out with them and watch TV and do the same stuff. It was like I was just perfect. It was perfect for me personally, and it was also probably great for the job.
Absolutely.
It's almost like you guys. I remember watching this like Beatles documentary, and they were just talking about like you don't realize that they were together when they were kids, and then they went through this experience together that only they know
Could relate to.
what
I think, though,
that journey
in terms of
is
that
like.
analogy, I think we were a little bit bigger than the Beatles.
I concur.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What was it like since, and I've asked Wilmer this, I think it's just amazing as we always talk about that the layers continue to get uncovered, and I get to learn more about Wilmer through this experience, but it's dawning more on me how young you two were and what a special experience it must have been like for you two. What was it like for you? Because this was the first time you ever really tasted fame on that level, and you guys were, to an extent, like, you guys were like a cool like show. It was almost like, must have been like being like a cool rock band, like
it felt
that kind of reception and that kind of fame must have been real similar. Like, how was that for you, especially it being the first time, your first show?
Well, Wilmer handled it much better than I did. He was already, you were like famous in your high school.
Yeah. I was in high school when
Yeah, but you were like, just he is a duck to water in terms of like, you're just one of those, like I feel like I have balls when I'm performing, but then when I'm not, I'm kind of a shy guy. You're like
you're a little more reserved in public. I think I'm a little bit more jazz hands, when it comes to
No, you're just the mayor, man. I mean, you're like, he's wonderful to everyone. Like, he's the way, when you're not playing a bad guy, the way his characters are nice and open is the way he is as a person. And it's great to be, and that also served for me as kind of a learning experience. I remember one thing, I'd never been to like parties, even I've been to a couple parties in college, but they were like, when you had to rush fraternities, so they like had to let you in, and then they were like, no, we don't want you. So like I'd never really been out, and then we were going to, some of the big clubs in the world, because the show was doing well. And I remember going to a party like in the hills with you once. This is such a good lesson. And again, like not a lesson I would have learned if I was hanging out with a bunch of people that were like me that I went to college with or whatever. But we went to this party, and there were no girls there that I liked or something. But I didn't think it was fun. Like, it wasn't a fun group of people. And Wilmer was like dancing with people and, like just making the party better, basically.
Yeah.
And I remember saying, like, let's get out of here. Because anytime I didn't think it was going to be the most fun ever, I was like, let's get out of here, let's go to another thing. And Wilmer goes, why don't we just stay here for another 3 hours? And I was like, why? And he's like, sometimes you got to just, I don't know exactly what your advice was, but it was like, just, this is where you are in life. Like, why don't we make this the party, kind of? And I was like, what? And then I realized it was such a valuable lesson, because we were having fun an hour later, and I was like, oh, this is because of us. And whatever. I sometimes I feel like I would have been a whole other guy. You know what I mean? Like, if I hadn't had certain people in my life, probably much better guy.
So what was it like as the show began to ascend? You were talking about how it was fame-wise, but how was it within the structure of the show? Did you feel was it just more cohesive? Like, what was the chemistry like between you all as
Oh yeah. When we just
was it just like a cool like theater group? Like it just was.
It grew.
best.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had such a short hand, and we were getting everything in 1-2 takes.
I actually can't believe we haven't acted together in a while, especially 90s show, which I did one episode of.
Yeah, and
You
we
and
didn't
my
even
character
cross
didn't
paths,
meet.
really,
I went to the taping of Wilmer's and you came to the taping of mine, which is great. But we have to. I mean,
Yeah, well, we have to figure it out because
wait, not even for the friendship element, which I would love to be hanging out with you every day, but just because it's so rare that you have that kind of connection with someone, understand someone that well.
And artistically, like you can build things artistically, with people that not only understand like your strengths, but also like help you with your weaknesses. You know what I mean?
right.
Like you're not out there swinging by yourself when you're doing this. Sometimes you get into a movie. And you're in the holding
Everyone's
area.
acting
and
in
some
their own
people
movie.
they don't even want to run lines, right? They don't want to run lines. They don't want to get each other off book. And you're like, okay, I guess I'm on by myself here, right? And then
You know what? You're making me remember. I don't think I've ever even spoken to anyone about this. I think a big part of the first year was being embarrassed that I was showing you guys what I was bad at, and also learning what everyone was bad at, which sounds like I was being judgmental.
That's interesting.
But actually, now that I realized, because it was going so well 2 or 3 years later, that we were all like putting all our cards on the table in kind of a messy way because we were kids.
And you have to, right? Because that's the only thing that it works, right?
What do you mean by bad at? What is?
Well, look, there was things.
Well, let me go
like,
through the list of what Wilmer's bad at. Do we have enough tape in the camera?
He still remembers.
Yeah,
He never lets me forget.
He never lets you forget it.
Yeah. No, it's like, actually, that's funny because I actually wouldn't know how to vocalize about any of those people, what they're bad at. I mean, essentially, they're all very talented, but it's more like, no, I would say, like, I'm trying
It's
to think
how we
of you and
finish
me.
each other's sentences, right? Like I think understanding the strengths and understanding like what
No, I knew strengths was more important because I knew when to pass you the ball when I didn't know how to do a joke like that. But then also, I think knowing people's what it's more what they're not comfortable with and what they're probably good at. Like probably some of those people were so young, they probably have grown to be better at certain things.
Right.
But at the time, maybe we thought like, I know people are scared to do stuff, and you're doing it in front of a live audience, and you're a teenager.
You could also fall in the trap of saying like, oh, I guess this is how I'm being seen, so this is how I need to, then I have to do that times 3, right? And like it's finding the volume of like, okay, well, how much is too much when I do the thing that I'm supposed to be doing here?
Right.
But I think that's, I come full circle to this, is there was a settledness to our show. It almost felt like a single camera. We were playing for the people at home. And that's very different than a lot of the sitcoms that were happening. Like a lot of sitcoms were playing the audience sometimes. But I think that we learned, you had like Bonnie and Terry Turner, David Traynor, who, by the way.
Oh yeah, look, it wasn't. I mean, there were so many great writers that came through that show, and
I also give David Traynor, our director, so much love, respect, admiration, and and just like so much motivation because you have to grab this really raw, talented group of young people, and you have to mold them into an actual mainstream primetime sitcom. And I keep saying it because the people who don't remember that day, Sunday night, between The Simpsons and The X-Files, my God, the responsibility you had to kind of stitch those two shows together.
Right. But how did y'all handle that as a group, as like you become you guys were like the rock stars of TV. Like, how do you handle that as teenagers, as a group?
Well, it was interesting because for many years, as soon as the show ended, we would go to Jerry's Deli.
Yeah, Wilmer and I, there were different groups of friends, but Wilmer and I would, after almost every taping, go to Jerry's Famous Deli.
Down the street in Studio City.
Yeah, it's 2 blocks away. We'd order French toast and bacon.
Right,
and also we would have invited some guests because it's like such a great thing that you work all week and then you kind of tape Friday nights. We'd say like, hey, show up at like 9 p.m. to our friend. They'd watch the last part of the show, and then we'd go with our friends to Jerry's and kind of, I realize now we're probably kind of coming down from the high of doing that show. And
And we would just bowl.
Wait,
Or
can I tell another story? I'm sorry.
Please.
I feel
Yeah,
like this
is the place for
This
that.
will be a nice photo document proof that I'm getting older because it's like all I want to do is reminisce and talk about the good old days.
Yeah.
But the best part, I was just driving past our old friend's house, Brendan's house.
Oh wow.
The second year we were starting to be like, all right, we got this. Like, because you get a summer break, and I think during the summer break we like digested it a little bit. And we're like, okay, like that wasn't so awful. And then when we came back, we felt like we had a little bit more of an understanding of what we were doing, and it was starting to go well. And he'd made friends with some guys that were on another show, and they kind of didn't want to go out and party either. Or didn't know what to do with their
they were
newfound
also
thing.
like awkward about like a Hollywood party or a red carpet. They were just like they weren't into it.
So we started a Monopoly group to answer your question the most
game
boring way
Monopoly?
possible. Yeah. It was the game Monopoly. One time we bought Triopoly, which is unsanctioned by Parker Brothers. And it's like, it took us 10 hours start to finish. It was like a layer cake. It was insane. But we would go over and get pizza and play Monopoly for 6 or 7 hours, and then video games. And you went, you go, no matter what we thought, we were still in that place of like, what will this experience become? And you go, you're having the best time you're ever going to have.
Yeah.
Right. And it really was like, it has a cross section with really being young.
Yeah.
And then playing young and then actually not being young anymore. But it was like such a perfect golden time.
And you nailed it. I mean, and like, listen, to answer, that's the answer to the question. Like, how did we cope with it?
Yeah.
We didn't. We actually, not that we ran away from it, we kind of just set into like what we were.
Yeah.
And we never, and I say this, like the cast of the show was the coolest cast, period. Like we didn't have to hang out with other people to be cool. We didn't care to hang out with other people. We were just like,
You had each other.
Yeah, we had each other, man.
Right.
And I felt accepted. I felt respected. I felt like I had real family. Like I have a real brother in him, and I felt safe to try and to soar. And like, and they gave me the juice to be like, oh, I can be more than Fez after this, right? Because I would have these conversations and we both, like, in between the summers, we would find gigs, right? We would find movies.
I remember coming in to see you on Party Monster.
Yeah.
And being like, this is different.
Yeah. Didn't you come to Summer Catch to North Carolina?
I actually flew to North Carolina.
He came to see me on the set of Summer Catch with Freddie Prinze Jr., Jessica Biel, and Matthew Lillard. I just saw Matthew Lillard the other night.
Oh, he's the best.
And he's just the best.
Yeah.
We were reminiscing on that, and he's just like such a sweet guy. But he came to visit me on the set of Summer Catch, and we always made a point of like visiting each other's sets and all that. Like I remember, you had gotten the Spider-Man movie.
Yeah, I remember.
And
I remember saying no need to come, and you showed up anyway.
I was like, I need to see this dude. I was like, I wanted to see him as Venom, And I went to the Sony studios.
Yeah, and that was the first iteration of it, right? Like,
And I rolled up, and he was wearing the whole thing in the face, and like
That was rough because the suit attached to your face, so it was like
it's like pooling on your face.
like, hey, how are you?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's like, hey, how you doing?
What season was that?
It was like
when
Botox before Botox. It was like,
I was like, while you're in there, give me a little.
yeah, give me a little lift. Give me a little lift over here. But I remember like geeking the hell out.
Yeah.
I'm walking in to see one of my best friends, and he's wearing the Venom suit.
But
like
Wilmer, seeing you, I'm sure you guys have questions in a certain order. But now seeing where Wilmer is in his career, you go, not to speak ill of anyone else's career, but the roles that are the really funny, wacky guy on a sitcom are especially hard to get out of. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's a lot easier to look at someone who's playing what my character was and say, okay, I can see him in other things. Like, your role was so hyper-specific. I did totally support you and think you were capable of it, but also thought this is going to be like a very hard journey. And when I see you, for some reason our TV tunes, we've cut the cable, right? So we only watch stuff on Paramount Plus or whatever. Right. But when we turn on the TV, there's always I don't know what, there's some channel that's like on, and it's always an ad for your show.
Right.
Like I would not design it that way. It's a little just because you got a gun in someone's face. Like my kids we're about to try to watch
Dark
Disney
and
or something. But
crime.
Watching him get from point A to point B, that's so just hats off to you, because I actually think there's a couple things that are hard about that, but especially that everyone's saying, like, I remember we'd go out and people would say, do the voice.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, oof, good luck getting out of this one. Like, and you did it, man. I mean, it's like,
I still get it, but
people are probably now like, but can he do comedy?
Right. Bro, for reals.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
For reals. Some people are trying to like, oh man, come back to comedy. Like, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing drama? Like, you should come back to comedy.
But you're funny. I mean,
you can do both, man. You can do both.
Yeah, you could totally do both.
But I do love comedy, but I think being able to have gone to all the different places, I think was the most fulfilling thing I could have ever done.
Yeah.
I feel very comfortable popping in and out of things, and I also feel very comfortable like blending both of them into characters and stuff. But
you look at Screech, you look at Urkel, you look at these roles are like impossible to
shake off. Yeah. But again, I mean, I took a lot of inspiration that we were one of the first TV casts. I think it was Dawson's Creek and us, the first cast that during the summer they go do a movie. Like most TV casts were like they just take the break, they take the months off because it's a long thing. But we were so young, we had the energy.
Yeah.
So in the summer, we'd go find gigs. We'd go do a movie with Scarlett Johansson and,
is that how you knew that the show was really ascending, that you all started to get...
Well, it was shifting. The paradigm on television and film were shifting. Films were getting smarter, understanding that some TV actors could be real estate for actual films. And they could say like, oh, they actually are a draw. They actually are in front of 20 million people a week.
Yeah.
How are we not leveraging that? That's why James Van Der Beek and Katie Holmes and Joshua Jackson, like all of these guys were out there doing all these movies.
Whatever happened to Michelle Williams, man? Did she work after that show? Did she work after that show?
Dude, and Michelle Williams, like they went out there and they did a beautiful transition and they go back and forth.
What was the first movie that both of you did while you were doing 70 Show that made you say that made you go?
Well, I went to see him on Summer Catch.
Well, that was my first movie. Yeah,
I flew right from Summer Catch to Traffic.
Yeah,
that same summer.
By the way, Traffic was his first movie off the show.
Oh no way, man!
But I remember, whatever. You know what? I could tell. This is so tough because I could tell so many stories about you. It's almost like I'd rather.
Yeah, but you're our guest. We got to talk about you.
Come on.
We need to talk about you.
Yeah. I never talk about my wife in interviews either because I always feel like I'm about to, I start saying my wedding vows. Like people are like, just relax. Like, But I feel the same way. I feel like too much time has gone by. But it was. That alone, just me going to see Summer Catch, I wasn't even in it, was like an incredible experience.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, okay, this is how films work. And then I went and did a film for the first time. It was cool.
Well, you didn't just do a film.
Yeah, no.
Like your first film out the gate was with Soderbergh.
That was a
And what was that like?
movie. Wow, amazing. I mean, like, Wilmer's right. The thing that people don't give it credit for, especially this is what I was saying, when young people are saying, like, wish I could get into films. I'm like, the way you should use, especially a sitcom, which they don't make that much of anymore, is that it's live, but it's a film. So there's filmic elements. There's live in front of an audience elements, so you're learning both. There's the every week element, so when you're bad, you get to come right back and try it again. And then there's the summer, where you get to go do something. Like I was playing a crack addict in that movie. And then you get to come back to your home base. So you try something, you go like, "Ooh, what was that?" And you kind of meditate on it for the year while you're in the safe role that you know how to play, and then you have another summer to try something new. It's the greatest, like kind of boot camp / like graduate school, I think.
Yeah, it's the best way.
When you were working with Soderbergh, was there ever a moment when you were like, "Oh, this is happening. This is." Like, the show that I'm doing has led me to this gigantic movie.
I don't think he was that aware of that 70 show at the time. But I do, because it had only been on for 40 episodes or something. And I don't think he watched it. But what I did realize was, for me, that I didn't want to have a career where I was playing the same role over and over again, which is, by the way, the way to be a bigger actor or a bigger star.
Right.
Is if you, I mean, when I told my agents that, they weren't like, "Oh, cool, like every time you'll start from zero." Yeah. But I actually do think that if you want to make money, if you want to be a big star, you should have the same role and kind of apply it to each film. And what I love, or what gets me still excited about acting, because it's been years since we started that show, is doing something different every single time. I just played it's going to sound like Traffic because I played like a heroin dealer, but
No, but you were dealing at least. You were in.
No. I was like the head dealer instead of like an addict. Right?
It's a major come up for sure. I think it's an evolution of the same rendition.
Yes.
He's up in the world, but I love. And then I'll go do something totally opposite.
But which movie are you talking? You're talking about
This is a Netflix show I did, which by the way was in Southport where you did Summer Catch. So I was teary eyed about that. When
That's
I was
so cool. Are you talking about the movie you just did with Mark Wahlberg?
No, this is a Netflix show called The Waterfront, where I'm like the bad guy.
Yes.
But I just got off of a show where I was playing a good guy for 3 years, and it's like, to me, I don't know how you guys, I mean, you're actors and probably feel the same way.
We are actors.
But don't you feel when you're doing different things, like that is the differential is what keeps that spark alive, and if you did the same things over and over again, after a while, you'd like, I just feel like, I'd just say I don't want to do this, or it would just the work would get bad. I think.
Yeah, we had this conversation. I think that the whole character actor thing is very synonymous with our generation. And I don't know, maybe I'm wrong here. I just don't think it's as important with this newer generation. I think when we were coming up watching De Niro and Pacino and Hoffman, and how they were transforming into these different characters,
and they felt like they were telling stories.
Yeah, but that was the thing to do. That was the way to show how good of an actor you were, is to transform and to be a character actor. And like, I still see it. Don't get me wrong. You know, I just don't see it as much. I don't feel like the importance is as much as actors from our generation. I mean, do you disagree?
No, you might be right. Yeah, I haven't really thought about it.
Yeah.
I don't know any of this. I have 3 kids.
Yeah.
I don't know who any of these young actors are. I know all the actors our age and above.
Yeah.
Have you ever worked with Soderbergh?
I haven't. No.
Oh, you'd love it. I mean, I was sad in the moment I was doing it. I was sad that it was my first job because I was like, I know I can't fully appreciate this the way I should. I mean, he shoots it. He's literally the guy behind the camera.
Right.
He's used all available light. You do like 2 takes. You move on. We were ahead of schedule the whole time.
Wow.
If he wants to say something to you, he'll just kind of move the camera and talk to you. I mean, it was like. I mean, he's just.
And Benicio won the Oscar for that, right?
Benicio,
yeah. Wow. Yeah, I haven't seen that film in a while. What was that like to have like a #1 movie out, a #1 TV show, and
and the Oscars, the first one out of the batch.
Felt pretty good, yeah.
Oscars movie, like what the hell?
We went to a couple of fun parties because of that. I think.
Yeah.
How old were you when that?
21 or something.
Yeah.
I mean, like it was
21, #1 movie, #1 show. I mean, you know,
it was
all in the day's work.
Nothing that Wilmer didn't come with me to. I remember showing you. I had you do a very early screening of that. Do you remember? You and Laura came, and. You know what? I hope this doesn't embarrass you. It's so many years since that film came out. Wilmer, this is how close we were. And I go, I'm mad. I don't even have anyone in my life like this now. Where I said, how was I in that? And he told me the one part where I wasn't good. And you were right. And that's so invaluable as an actor. Do you know what I mean? Like to have some, like, my own manager probably now wouldn't tell me. Do you know what I mean? Like
you were honestly asking me.
Yeah, I was. I actually wanted to know.
People want to ask, and they just want to just hear, "Oh, you're great," you know.
Yeah.
But he will.
You're trying to figure out. You're trying to figure out
the next take, right? Like we had that relationship.
Yeah, that's right.
When like if I do a joke on the show, and he'd be like, "Do one more," you know. He would just, he would
That's
always.
right. That's how safe we were with each other. I mean, no one who's outside of the industry who's watching this would understand. Like it's a real faux pas if someone even just finishes a take and says, "Was that good?" Like just everyone would say, "Yeah, great job." Like no one would be like, "Oh, dude, like no." But that's how safe we were with each other. That you were, and it was the first film I'd been in, so I actually wanted to know.
Yeah,
and
I was really emotional watching you in that movie because you see, one of your best friends, / brothers who you're like literally experiencing. By the way, by 21, we've been doing this show for now for 2 years or so, or whatever.
Yeah, 2.5 years. Yeah.
And like he's on screen. Michael Douglas, Catherine Zeta-Jones, Don Cheadle, Luis Guzman, Benicio del Toro, Jacob Vargas,
Jake.
And I'm like,
he's great. Yeah,
and I'm like, there he is.
There you are.
It's like, it was just really emotional for me, because it tells you it's possible, right? Like also like, I never thought I was any different, in Topher. So his wins were like my wins, bro. Like, whoa, shit, we're doing it, man. Like and that's something I'll never forget, because to your point, rarely we have that. We rarely have individuals around us to remind us what it was like, how it turned out, and like still be here to see you where you're gonna go next. And that's the part where, like, you talk about getting coordinated. Like, I live that truth. After so many years in the game, we're going on almost 30 years in the game. Mm-hmm. You start thinking about, like who you surround yourself with.
Right.
And time does its job on like who's not supposed to be there anymore.
Yeah, that's so right.
Right?
Yeah.
And then one day you look around and like, we're still here, right?
Still
like
here.
this is an interesting thing. I mean, the same thing with Freddy. Freddy's also been, as an actor, to see him work with some of the greats, it's also been, emotional, right? We talk about cultural representation, talk about, people that played roles that changed it.
You're a fantastic actor. We just met when I walked in here, but I'm so thrilled to meet you, and hopefully we'll work together at some point, man. There's too much gold here.
There's too much.
This guy's too great. We got to split it too.
Topher, you're giving us too much gold, man. It's all in the.
It's like
it's so rich. It's so rich when it touched your lips. So this is part one. We cover a lot of nostalgia here and all that, and excited for you guys all to experience part two. I'm Wilmer Valderrama.
I'm Freddy Rodriguez.
And this is Dos Amigos.